Hello everybody, how are you? Just want to take a little picture. Everybody wave. Yes. Everyone's looking good. Okay, right. So last time I came and talked about punk rock and DIY culture. And just to show you what a varied palette I've got, this time I'm going to talk about punk rock and the universe. So stretch it out a little bit to the very edge of the universe. Now, the Big Bang is where it all starts in universe terms. And we all know that because there's far better qualified speakers on at this thing than me to talk about this kind of thing. But the Big Bang in personal terms for me was, of course, punk rock. The first time I heard the Sex Pistols record, it completely changed my life and set me off on a ridiculous course where I've ended up today talking to you about punk rock. So you're probably sitting there thinking, how does punk rock have anything to do with the universe at all? But for me, it's got everything to do with the universe, because there's something about music. It's the holiest and greatest of art forms. It's the only one that goes beyond the moment, because I always think with painting, photography, sculpture, fantastic art forms, but they're of the moment, whereas music is of the forever. And Nitin Sawhney was talking about this before, and I was stood there thinking, oh God, he's about to do the same talk as me. I'm going to have to change everything now. But he talked about how music can reach out further and further and try and explain the chaos. And sometimes, in terms of punk rock, actually create the chaos, which is far more entertaining. So like with punk rock, this gave us an opportunity, or people my age, to make music. Now, growing up in a place called Blackpool, is anybody here from Blackpool? Yeah, Seasiders. It's good, always good to meet someone else. Wow, 2 people from Blackpool, a fine town. But not a town, as the people from here from Blackpool would ever admit, full of art. It wasn't a sort of place you could get music together. I mean, everybody knows about Blackpool. It's where people go to get drunk, be sick, act crazy, have a good time, have a hangover. That's Blackpool for you. It's got a tower, great. But it doesn't mean that there's a space where you can create much culture. So punk rock gave us a chance to create our own culture, and it was a fantastic moment. And I often think about the purest form of art is that little scream at the universe that says, I am here. Like the scary guy I was mentioning a moment ago. I'm the scary guy's bigger, uglier, scarier brother. Well, maybe not. And it was that idea that it's your little moment to say to the universe, I exist. And when we made those records, those DIY records in our early days, in our youth, we created something that got played on the radio by the wonderful John Peel. And what somebody told me once, which always stuck at the back of my mind, was those radio waves will bounce across the cosmos forever and ever and ever. And that really fascinated me, that we'd finally become part of the universe instead of just walking around in Blackpool trying to make music. And then somebody else told me something really, really fascinating, which really tied up this idea of music and the universe and the cosmos all being the one thing. That the energy that came out of the initial Big Bang actually came out as a musical note, which is really, really fascinating. And the musical note apparently hovered between B flat and B. Now, somebody told me this when we were 18 and we were just getting our punk rock bands together. We didn't know what B flat was. We didn't even know what chords were. But we had an idea it was something musical, and that was something to do with what we were trying to do with music. And this idea that we were just sort of operating in the same kind of space as a very sound of the universe itself was really, really fascinating. How do we kind of click into this B-flat thing? And after 35 years, when I finally learned what chords were and bits of music were, I still haven't written a song in B-flat, so maybe I should try this to see if I can get to the very heart of the universe. But I think that's probably what music does in a sense. And people talk about this in terms of meditation and the Om thing, that it's the hum, the sound of the universe that you're clicking into. And I love that idea that no matter how bizarre, how noisy your music is, the drone that sits underneath it is what actually makes it work, because you are clicking into something that's so timeless and so forever and ever. It's really, really fascinating. So with all this kind of knowledge, I'm meeting some great scientists here, these TEDx talks over the years. I met some amazing people you have lunch with, and you're sitting there talking about how to make DIY punk records, and they're telling you about how the whole universe was created, and you're feeling very, very small. But they're all equally fascinated by Buzzcocks B-sides and punk rock records. So at least we have something to give back to them. So we thought, like, this year, we should do a gig where we explain the universe. So we called the gig The Universe Explained, an utterly pretentious title. But we thought within 3 hours, with scientists, artists, musicians, even a comedian telling jokes about Higgs boson particles, which didn't really work, wasn't that funny. It could have been, but I can't work out what punchline that kind of joke would be. That we decided we would explain the whole universe, and at the end we would play some music. The evening was amazing. When the scientists turned up, about 4 of them all turned up at once, and you knew they were the scientists because they looked like the rock stars. They had long silver hair, long grey beards, they looked like Cat Weasel or Fleetwood Mac roadies. And they stood in the bar, in the venue, looking very, very confused, like they didn't know how to sit themselves down in a chair. They just couldn't do anything for themselves. But as soon as they got on the stage, they were the most amazing people, the most amazing knowledge to impart. This sort of a knowledge of everything. And we're sitting there doing in conversations with them, interviewing them about the Higgs boson particle, about how the universe is just this endless kind of fund of ideas, and how they have scientists who just sit there all day imagining theories, not even looking for scientific theories, but just thinking up ideas. And you look to them, their long grey hair, and the long grey beards, and you thought, wow, these people are like sort of LSD heads from the 60s. And they're still out there, still floating, but still coming up with these amazing, incredible ideas. And they said there was 2 types of scientists. Ones that try and prove everything, and ones that think up really wacky theories. And I was thinking, the ones with the wacky theories, these are our kind of guys. These are ones that are the same as the musicians, trying to pluck ideas out of thin air, make something out of nothing. The same as we tried to when we were like kids in garages in Blackpool trying to make music. But they were doing it with something far more useful. They were trying to explain everything, and they were just letting their minds wander. And I thought, there's so many connections to the same type of people. And they would talk about these things they could not disprove, that there could be 1 billion universes going on forever and ever and ever. You'll never get through to the other universes, and everything that ever happened, or everything that ever could happen, is happening somewhere else in the cosmos, or the other cosmos, or the cosmos beyond that. They said, maybe there is no edge to the universe. The universe is now, they think, is 90% dark matter and dark energy. And I say, why do you call it that? It's the most dark matter and dark energy. They sound like the best 2 names of punk bands I've ever heard. They're really like, heavy and strange sounding. I just love that sound. The sound of those words is so enticing, so fantastic. And I said, why is it called that? Because you're the scientists. You must know what this stuff is. And they said, we haven't a clue. And they said, the more we find out, the less we know. And I thought, that's amazing. That's a song title on its own. These are the most inspirational people I've ever spoken to. And I said, what happens in the end of the universe? And they said, well, we don't know. It could be several different things. All the protons separate and just goes into a glow of white light forever and ever and ever. And I was going, God, that sounds like heaven. That's terrifying. Do you mean that there is actually a God? And they said, the more we look into it, the more it looks like there's a hidden hand moving everything around, and there could be a God. And I was going, oh, that's just the worst thing I've ever heard. The televangelists were right all the time, that there is a God. Oh, I just want to believe in science. I want to believe in our capability of explaining everything. I don't want to believe in something from 2,000 years ago written in the sand. So maybe I have to know. And they said the other theory they had was all the gravity just can't hold it together anymore, and it becomes this blackness, and the only sign of life in there is flickering black holes. And I thought, wow, that sounds fantastic as well. I couldn't decide which end of the universe I actually wanted more than the other. They both sounded equally beautiful there. One was like brilliantly bright light, and the other one was like this utter darkness and despair. It made me want to reach out for my Joy Division records again. The records that was soundtrack the end of the universe. And we thought, this is just perfect for a gig. The way these people talk, this is just what we try and do with the music when we're locked in a room and we're playing. And it's a different type of music than pop music, where you just try and catch people's attention with little nursery rhymes. This was like music where you're just playing and you just get onto a different plane. You're just playing away. And suddenly things start to happen, and you get into this drone, and you just get into this space. And suddenly you're making like music that explains the universe. Not in the lyrics, nothing as corny as trying to rhyme space with race and place or anything like that. Because you cannot, there's no words in the human language that could describe the utter wonder and the sheer artfulness and the beauty of the universe and the danger and the chaos and all those fantastic things about it. There's no words in our language, and it's one of the best languages ever, the British language. There's so many words, it can change, it can evolve, you can make words up. It's a free language, but we haven't got the capability of inventing enough words to describe the complete madness of the universe. But with music, it's different. There's just so many suggestions and ideas that come out of the music. So we put this, so we got to play this gig. So I reformed my old band, a band called The Membranes, which is like a John Peel kind of band. Used to play, that's kind of a terminology for bands that were just horrible, noisy, and only certain people could be bothered to listen to, and no one else ever liked. But that's the kind of music we made. We had no capability to make pop music like the Beatles had. So we reformed them, and it was a perfect kind of band to do this event because we could do what we wanted. It was like free jazz or punk and noise. It was just music that was completely free, not linear, and you could just do what you wanted. And we played at the end. We played at the end after all this fantastic talk of like black holes and wormholes and quasars and the tiniest particles ever, and the universe is within, and all that kind of thing. It was really, really inspirational. And we even thought about doing a song in B flat, but we never got round to it. But maybe next time we shall. And the night went really, really well, and we felt like we'd explained the whole universe in music and word. But of course, we got to the end, and we hadn't at all, because nobody could possibly understand the vastness and the complexity of the universe. Not even with 8 notes and guitar chords can you possibly do this. And the music, for me, was everything. And it's just what I really was trying to explain here, that punk rock, even in its most simplistic form, and the idea that it's just it's a scream of the universe is saying, I'm here, but it's also capable of embracing the universe and trying to explain it in chords and notes and shouting and drum beats and rhythms, and trying to get to the very heart and the kernel of everything. And it sounds utterly pretentious, which punk rock wasn't about, because I'm sure most people have this picture, postcard idea of what punk rock is, which is a lot of people spitting at each other and wearing safety pins. But it was a completely different thing for us. It was like the sound of freedom. It was just like an escape. It was also like an attempt to explain your surroundings. But my surroundings weren't just Blackpool, sorry. There's more to Blackpool than just a tower and a beach. I felt like we were just clicked into some kind of universal thing. And we had to make the music reflect this. And we always tried hard to make that kind of work. And that's one of the great things about coming to these TEDx talks, because I find them really, really inspirational. Watching these people talk about all their different kind of things that they do, and especially the scientists who have this knack of like explaining really esoteric, huge theories in really, really simple ways, which is such like a great punk rock kind of thing to do. And that night at the Universe Explain gig, before the scientists, well, actually when the scientists came in, and they all, like I said, they all like silver versions of Catweasel. And I thought, oh my God, this is going to be difficult interviewing these guys, because they're just going to be so intellectual, and they're going to make us look like village idiots trying to speak to them. But they explained the most complicated things in very, very simple kind of ways. Little chunks, little crumbs they could throw at us, mere mortals, like trying to understand it. And I thought it was like watching a really noisy gig. You either go with it or you resist it. And anybody who talks about like really kind of out there kind of theories or really complex kind of theories, instead of just like saying, I can't understand, it's too difficult for me, this is beyond me, I just sort of go like, oh, that sounds amazing. It's just like it's just washing into your mind. And it makes complete sense as long as you still question it as well. And that tonight, it all came together. And the mad thing was the scientists danced around to the music, and we danced around to their words as they explained the whole universal concept. And as I stood on the stage and we're playing away, I still thought about those records getting played on the John Peel show, and those radio waves as they floated across the universe and floated across the cosmos forever and ever. And I thought of like alien kind of cultures, like billions of light years away. They have no idea that we're even here because we're on the edge of the edge of the edge. The idea that we were the centre of the universe in medieval times or in the religions, it just seems so laughable when you realise how huge this whole thing is. We're not even on the edge of the smallest town in Britain. We're not even Doncaster compared to China. We're just nothing. And we find another culture somewhere. All these radar waves of our culture go flying towards them. And I just think they must think we're the most screwed up people ever, because it'll be such a weird mixture of these noisy John Peel bands, the X Factor Simon Cowell thing he was talking about before, like some crazy music from another country, some like mad ranting televangelists, all coming at once, all completely out of order, all really dislocated. It must be fascinating watching a culture on the edge of a nervous breakdown. But it's a picture postcard from our planet, and that's what I find really, really fascinating about it all. So that night, and that gig, was our attempt to explain the universe. And we used the most only rudimentary tools that we could understand: guitar, bass, drums, volume, and words. And we had no idea that we could explain the whole thing. But when we were locked into the noise, we felt like it was the universe. And the universe is rushing by in the drone of sound, which is the eternal drone which lies at the bottom of all great music. And one day, when we actually learn to play properly, we will discover what B flat actually is. Okay, thank you.